Good morning. Welcome back to the beginner friendly spring track. I'm Bob Brinley, your MC for the day. And thank you so much if you were just with us with Wei Lee and the Liberty Mutual. And now we're going to move on to our next presentation. We're very happy and honored to have with us Martin Lippert, and he's going to be talking about Spring Tools 4. So, Martin, thank you for joining us, and away you go.
Hey, thank you very much for the introduction and welcome from my side to Spring One. It's awesome to be here. My name is Martin. I work on the Spring Core Engineering team on the Spring Tools. So I'm the lead for the Spring Tools, and I would like to talk about the Spring Tools. What else? So my goal is to make you all more productive with providing you great and awesome tools, and that's what I would like to give you a brief intro. Since this is the beginner-friendly spring session, I will give a very beginner-friendly intro to all the Spring tools. Therefore, let me share my screen quickly and jump over to a few slides to show you all the stuff. Okay, so Spring Tools 4, of course, safe harbor statement. At the beginning, if there are kind of forward-looking statements included, then don't worry, we might ship different things. And the Spring Tools 4, they are really, yeah, I still hear some stuff in the background in case if you're asking me, the technical folks. So the Spring Tools 4, they are really about giving you the best experience when you hack on your Spring applications and on your Spring REST services, on your Spring microservices, on your Spring Cloud apps, on your Spring Boot stuff. So it's really focused on modern Spring Boot-based development. And the way we are trying to help you is to let the tools understand your code from the Spring perspective and give you unique insights into your source code and help you with, for example, super quickly navigating all your code from the Spring perspective, giving you deep insights into the running Spring applications, and having a unique combination of source code and live information, which I will show you in a few seconds. The Spring Tools 4 tool set that you can get from spring.io/tools is, I think, the most comprehensive and most widely used, completely free Spring tooling. Of course, there are different other Spring tools out there. You can use awesome Spring tools out there, but I will really focus on the stuff that we are shipping for different platforms. So the stuff that we are working on is fully open source, free to use, and you can basically use it any way you like. The tools that we build, they run as extensions for existing development environments that you love and that you like. For example, desktop class IDEs. You prefer, for example, Eclipse, and you would like to use Spring Tools there. They ship it as an extension for Eclipse. On the other side, if you prefer more these kind of lightweight editors, like Visual Studio Code, there's an extension for Spring Tools 4 for Visual Studio Code. And if you're looking into the future for cloud-based tooling, and thinking about cloud-based IDEs, we ship this stuff as an extension for THEA as well. In addition to those extensions to existing IDEs, for the Eclipse case, we also provide a ready-to-use distribution that you can just download, install, and can go from there. All this new Spring Tool stuff, and you can see we built it, and you can plug it into different IDEs and different environments. That is because we've built that on a very modern foundation, which is the language server protocol. And the language server protocol really makes it easy for us to build it more or less once, at least huge parts of that, and plug that into different tools. And before I talk too much about tooling and showing you slides, let me do some demos. And that's what I really would like to do. So let's go to, for example, the Eclipse tooling. In this case, I use the Spring Tool Suite, which is this ready-to-use distribution. And to get started, you would go to something like start.spring.io and generate your Spring Boot project. You can select all the dependencies, all the basic settings, like, oh, let's do a web project, things like that. You would generate it, you would extract it, you would import it in your IDE. But for the tools, we have a slightly easier integration, since you can just go here and say, hey, you can go to Spring Starter project and import that. Someone is telling me I'm not sharing my screen, so let me double check that. Oh, here we are. Oh, maybe now. Maybe it's better now. Yeah, I'm sorry for that. So, so what you would do, go to start.spring.io and do all the things here. Instead, you can also go to the IDE. And in the IDE case, you can say, hey, we have an integration for Spring Starter projects for start.spring.io. So you can do that. Get a nice little wizard, and you can see all the things here. In this case, basic settings, you go to the next slide. You can select your preferred dependencies. Let's take a look at the web and the actuator thing. Okay, press finish, and you get your thing. Get your ready to use project over here, which is a basic Spring Boot project that's been generated by start.spring.io. So that's all good. And as someone already mentioned in the previous talks, we have this nice little boot dashboard that you can use to just quickly start up your boot app. And now you start up your boot app. In this case, it's just ready to use, running. It's not really doing anything crazy at the moment, but it is at least running, and it's super easy to use. Super easy to run, start, stop over here. You can jump to the console output, and that's it. Okay, so that is awesome. That is one way to get started with a Spring project in your IDE. There is another way to learn more about, for example, I would like to add something to this project. And you would go to Spring Guides, the spring.io/guides page. For example, in this case, I looked for the REST service, how to build a REST service guide. You could walk through the description, read through that, see what's going on, and do that in your IDE. And we've built a specific integration for that. So you could go to another wizard that imports those guides for you, shows you all the guides. You can search for one. Let me pick that one. I choose to just take a look at the complete example, not the initial version. You can press go, and you will see the documentation showing up here, and you get a ready-to-use example in your workspace over here. So that's awesome. You can take a look at that. Cool, that's great. We could run that as well, but maybe there's something I would like to add over time to this project. There's a Spring Boot project. Many people have a Spring Boot project, and they would like to add another starter. They didn't select that at the beginning. They would like to add something. So therefore, there's a nice little add starters wizard that we integrated. It figures out which boot project you're running on, and you can add additional things. In this case, I would like to add Spring Boot Actuator and Spring Boot DevTools to my project. And in this case, it tells me exactly what is missing and what needs to be added to my existing, in this case, for example, POM file, to add those additional things. It also shows me other things that my project might benefit from that in the initializer wizard would generate if I would create a new project. But in this case, I just select all the dependencies and go. So I get those changes in my workspace. Let me quickly run my project over here from the boot dashboard again, which I think is pretty nice because you can do a double click and it opens up the thing. No need to open a different browser, no need to type in the localhost 8080, no need to look up the port. It all shows up over here, which I think is pretty nice. So in this case, I go to the greeting thing. That's fine. In addition, I can also take a look a little bit inside this and see what are the request metrics that this application is serving. For example, greeting, where does the greeting come from? I can quickly jump to the code, see the code. So that is all, I think, nice and useful. To get started, get an idea what's going on, and that you can get your Spring Boot project up and running pretty quickly. But let's go one step further. One step further is I have a project which is a little bit bigger. It's not a toy project anymore. It contains a lot of stuff. In this case, I use the Spring Pet Clinic project. It contains quite a bunch of things, and I have no idea exactly what's all included. So there's a unique feature inside the Spring tools that gives you an overview about all your Spring concepts, which is based on symbols. So I can press a keystroke, and that shows up an overview about the symbols. For example, if I would like to know where is AutoWired being used, I can type that in. I can see, oh, this is used over in those 2 files, for example, in those places. If I would like to see what is in configuration in my Spring application, I can quickly see all the different configurations that I have. The interesting case here is, since it knows and understands Spring, it knows that, for example, a Spring Boot application, in this case here, is actually annotated with Spring Boot application, but is also kind of meta annotated automatically with add configuration. So that gives you a really, really nice overview. There's an additional way. For example, you can press add plus, you see all the beans that are available in your app. So for example, I'm looking for controller beans. I can see a list of all the controller beans that I called controller in that case. Or I would like to see all my repository beans, see all the repository beans. And something that's, I think, very nice, if you press slash, you see an overview about all your request mappings in your application. In this case, let me go over here and see the request mappings. So really nice. That's kind of an in-place thing. That's cool. If you would like to use it as a view, there's also a view for that you can use. For example, here, let's keep this view open all the time because I would like to see an overview about all the symbols in my app. Okay, so let's start up the app quickly. And what you will see in addition to those symbols is that there are some highlights showing up. You might have seen them before from my demo, but in this case, those highlights show you information from the application that runs on my machine. So all the symbols that you see, they are just providing overview about source code. Now you get a unique overlay of your source code with information from the running application. So in this case, you see that this request mapping is actually active in my running application. And I could, for example, click on here and jump to that mapping. In addition to that, for example, I see that, oh, here's an AutoWired annotation, and that is not highlighted, so that doesn't seem to be wired. What's going on here? So let me quickly see if there's there's a welcome message provider over here, a bean. Let's go over here. So there's a bean defined component, not highlighted, so that's not there in my live application. And if you hover over the conditional thing, you'll see that, oh, the condition is not met at runtime. So I can understand why certain beans are being created at runtime and why certain beans are not being created at runtime, which is extremely useful. And since I added Boot DevTools to my project, I can now go ahead and change that in my little properties file. In this case, it shows me nice content assist, hovers for all the properties that are around. Another nice feature of the tooling. So let's say, hello, Spring 1, press save. Whenever I save the file, Spring Boot DevTools under the hood, it's a kind of a unique feature of Spring Boot DevTools as Spring Boot, additional module. It updates the app automatically for me. So whenever I jump to that application, I will see, oh, there's a new message that's being used. And if I go back to my welcome controller and I refresh this live information, in this case, I can just go to the light bulb and refresh that information, I will see that, oh, wow, this AutoWired is now being actually wired. There's a bean being injected in that. And I can hover over that and see which bean is being injected. Oh, there's a property-based welcome message provider being injected in here. That's pretty awesome. I can see that. Let's take a look at that. So I can jump to it. And if I jump to that message provided over here to this bean, I see, oh, this is active, so that's good. But it is not only active, it has dependencies, and it is being injected in other beans. So in this case, it is being injected into the welcome controller that we looked at a moment ago. And there's another bean, the welcome message properties bean, which is being injected into this one. So I can see exactly what's going on at runtime, which I think is pretty amazing and pretty cool and extremely useful. I told you that we provide these things for different tools. So when I, for example, jump over to VS Code, I have the same project open in VS Code, you will see, for example, that the symbols work in exactly the same way. So you can open up symbols view, see, oh, what are my request mappings, what are my beans, exactly the same stuff. You could even connect your source code to this live running application using a simple command. I can select that, and it shows you exactly the same live information then for my running app in VS Code, which I think is also pretty useful. And you see that kind of we provide the same stuff in the language server for different tools. Okay, so let me go back on that. One thing that you might also want to use is not only running your stuff locally and starting it up, but you're interested in these containerized developments. And you're using Docker, and you have noticed that Spring Boot 2.3 has this new feature to build Docker or OCI container images right out of the box. That's why we integrated that into the Boot dashboard. So you can add Docker, a specific Docker daemon, to your local dashboard. And then you can select a project and say, hey, let me run that in debug mode on this Docker instance. In this case, what you will see is there's this node showing up here, and it is kicking off the container image build under the hood and for building the container image for this specific Spring Boot application just automatically for you. If you need to customize that, you can do that with the Spring Boot container building image features. So there's nothing that's tooling specific, since we just execute the build that you can see. You can see the build output there. It starts up the Boot app in the container. So you will see there's an image being built, and there's a container being kicked off that is running that image and is running the app in debug mode. Let me quickly go back here. So it's running the app in debug mode. It shows me exactly the same live information from the app running inside Docker. So I can see directly, can basically do the same, but the app is running inside of Docker if I would like to try that out, or if I have specific images that contain specific things for my application that makes it easier to use and run locally. So trust me, debugging works, live information works in exactly the same way. And even the Spring Boot dev tools are automatically connected to this application. So whenever, let me double click that and see, hello Spring 1, let me change that, hello Spring 1 on Docker, and save that. You will see that there's, after some kind of initial small delay, things hooks things up to the uploads and change things to the same app, and it should show me this change thing. Now it doesn't work. It's kind of the things went wrong with the Boot DevTools thing. Anyway, so we should fix that for the next version, but from the idea, it's kind of doing the Boot DevTools thing in the same way for Docker than for the app running locally, which I think is pretty cool. So let me quickly delete all that again from my Docker thing and quickly switch back to my slides. And finally, you will be able to see my slides. Sorry for not sharing them at the beginning and that I somehow screwed that up. Sorry for that. Another question is for me, whether you are still, and that's just a question for you. So we are thinking about helping people who have still Spring XML configuration files on their projects. And we're thinking about tooling for that, and we are looking for feedback. So Are you interested in that? Or is it something you would say, we don't care about the XML stuff anymore? Let us know. Go to the Slack channel and let us know if this is useful for you or not. For example, just to give you a brief glimpse of it, quick teaser, simple Spring Boot app and VS Code with a service and a config, an old XML style config. And what I could do here is run our little tool, configure it with a few parameters. What's that package that's called conf.example.demo? Oops. Base path, base package. Sorry for that. Let's try again. So it runs a little tool, analyzes the code, and tries to migrate that and help you a little bit with migrating your stuff. So whenever it's done, or as soon as the tooling is done, this XML thing, it turned this XML thing into a Java annotation-based configuration for your Spring app. Very, very, very early prototypey thing, but we would be very interested if you're interested in that. Is this something that makes sense to you? Would you like to see such a thing being built and integrated into the IDE or being used in the command line? Would that be awesome? Would that help you, or not super important for you? So please let us know. So that would be awesome. Let's go back to the slides quickly. Share my remaining slides. As long as I have slides, I can still share them finally, and you can see them. Brief outlook at the end. So we going to ship updates to the Spring tools for all the platforms, and we will continue that. It's roughly every 4 weeks. We still support the old Spring Tool Suite 3.9 thing, but that will reach its end of life pretty quickly. So if you, for example, are still a user of Spring Tools 3, and you rely on specific features, please let us know. Because if those features are super important for you, we can think about transforming them into the Spring Tools 4 world, but those old Spring Tools 3 will go away very, very soon. So without having an exact date in mind, but that will be soon. So please let us know and give us feedback on that. And with that, I would like to say thank you all for listening, and sorry for not sharing my slides at the beginning. Hope you still enjoyed that. And I can upload them if you want to. But I think I said everything that was on there. Go to the Slack channel and chat with the team. All the team members from the Spring Tools engineering team are on the Slack channel. So please go on there. I will be there in a second as well, and we can chat there. I have a few additional resources over here where you can reach the team beyond the conference, where you can download the tools. And with that, I say thank you all for joining the session. It was a pleasure and fun, and I'm happy to jump to the Slack and answer questions. So thank you all.
Turn off your cameras, watch this video. All right. Thank you all so much. Thank you, Martin. I appreciate it. If you have any questions, please go over to the Slack channel for Beginner Spring. And Martin will be hanging out there for the next little bit, answering any questions that you might have. Maybe he'll have some questions of his own. I don't ever know. But please stay tuned. We have a really great presentation coming up next with our good friends from the Spring Cloud team, Olga Macheshik Sharma and Spencer Gibb. So come on back in a few minutes, and we'll see you soon. Thank you so much.